Alright guys, we're going to be doing some front brake pad replacement on a 2010 GMC Acadia. We're going to start off with a 13mm socket in the back of our caliper bolts here. This Acadia had 19mm lug nuts on it. I don't think that's stock, but that's what it had. Just letting you know. I'm going to start off by taking these two bolts out. Bada boom, easy enough, right? This won't be too long of a video. We're going to take us a big jumbo flathead screwdriver, get in between the grooves of the rotor, and press this caliper piston back. If it'll push back at all for us. Let's see. Oh yeah, they're pushing back. There we go. Quite a ways. Now we got our caliper off. And we got 21mm on the brackets here. Now you could just take these pads out, put new pads in. Don't recommend that. We got some premium pads that comes with new hardware. You're gonna want that new hardware, or take your hardware out, clean them up real good. See, the tabs were broken off on this guy. There's tabs on these that press against the brake pad to keep them away from the rotor. When you hit your brakes, they squeeze in. So, and there's little grooves that the brake pads slide into and lock into place. And this hardware is just no good no more. So first thing we're gonna do is take these slider bolts out, clean the old grease up, and put some high temp silicone based brake grease in there. I use Sil Glide. I love it. Best stuff around, right? Alright, we got to get our caliper compressed. So I'm just going to use these big jaws. Now we're pressing the old brake fluid back in through the line. So after we're done, we're going to want to do a brake bleeding. Now you want to be careful when you're pressing your caliper in. You don't want to crack your piston or anything. If it's taking excessive force, you don't want to use jaws like that. You don't want some sort of cushion between them or something. Alright, when you press one pad in, or one piston in, it presses the other piston out. So you want to keep an eye on that other piston, make sure it doesn't come shooting out on you. Take it nice and slow, nice and easy, if you're not super experienced with dual piston calipers. I'm using a little $4 or $5 tool. You get a Harbor Freight AutoZone. It's a caliper tool. It just holds that piston in, keeps it from coming out, while I compress the second piston in all the way. And these jaws need to be tightened a little. And I need to be a little taller so I can see what I'm doing. We got to tighten the nut on this jaw a little bit. There we go. I need to be a little taller. I'll bring it down here so I can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. Now, not excessive force on these calipers. So these calipers aren't all rusted up inside. They're not hung up, seized. They're going in smooth. That's what we like to feel. Make sure they're nice and clean. Blow the dust out of them where they're going to contact the new brake pads. Alright, calipers all prepped up. Now we move on to our mounting bracket. I'm going to put it in the bench vise here and show you what I mean. Because a lot of people just slap new pads in and they get 20,000 miles out of their pads and wonder why. Because everything's not cleaned up. Or you got a seized up slider hardware and didn't even check your sliders. So we got this one. We're gonna take them to the wire wheel if they're nice and rusty. They're not rusty. Sometimes they're real rusty. Check your boots. So we'll wipe all that old used grease off. Put a dab right inside that boot. Coat the slide. Shove it back in there. Make sure it's sealed with the boot. Next side. Same story. And we got the new hardware. We're gonna be replacing that. And this is Michigan, so everything gets rusty in Michigan. Like, your new pads will not fit in if you're in the salt belt unless you give them a cleaning. Your mounting bracket, I'll show you that. We'll pop the old damaged hardware off. Now this hardware locks in the middle. And these get real rusty. You can use a wire brush, wire wheel, whatever you got. I like my little Dremel tool with the rust remover tip. And I'm gonna clean off where those go first. And then we're gonna clean, so we cleaned off where the clips clip in the center. Now we're gonna clean off where the new hardware goes, because the rust builds up and presses up against the new hardware, and it makes your pads really tight, wear out faster. So we gotta clean all this rust out of here. Really rusty right here. I'm going to take a little bit of my brake grease and lightly coat where the new hardware is going to go. That's going to keep that from rusting up so fast this time. If you live somewhere that's salt snow free, you don't really got to worry about this as much. This is just going to let these brakes last that much longer. All right, so this is simple. We just pop these guys on here. in the right direction. Same way the old ones were on. Press in on the middle where it snaps in. Make sure that's seated up in there. And then just where the ear of the pad is going to touch the hardware, just a little tiny bit there. And we got a pad with a squealer tab on it. That's going to go on the inside of the bracket, and the squealer tab is going to face towards the top. That's the position I'm going to put it in. Now this is the tricky part, getting these pads in here. They kind of suck. You might think that like it's too tight, but then once you get it all the way in there, you're good. You want to put it right on the inside lip of that little hook on one side, and then you've got to press in on your hardware and down on the little spring on the inside and get it to fit in there. But once it goes in, then you'll have play. There we go. And the pad slides in and out really smooth. But it's tricky to get it in there. It just kind of sucks. Not all brake pads are like this, but that's how the hardware works on this guy. It's just tricky to get those pads in there. So now we'll get our outside pad in. This one doesn't have a squealer tab. Just a light coat on the ears. Keep the ears from rusting over time. I found a lot of brake grease wears out real quick from heat and rain, water. But this brake grease really lasts a long time. That's why I use it. There we go. Got this one locked in. Having a lot of practice with this style really helps make it look easy. All right, time to put everything back together, right? We got that mounting bracket all prepped. We've got our caliper all prepped. And if you're going to replace the rotor, you got a T30 set screw on the rotor to take out. And hammer the rotor off, replace your rotor. All right, so we'll set this mounting bracket in like so and get our bolts started. Perfect. There's already anti-seize on these bolts. And we'll get these nice and tight. Pop our caliper over the pads first, and then you'll press in on your slides and make sure they're lined up fairly horizontal so they fit into the groove. Got our 13mm caliper bolts. You might have to do a little shimmy to get them to line up. Make sure you don't cross thread them or anything. There we go, they're started. All right, so we'll tighten these up nice and tight. And then we gotta do the other side and prime the brake pedal. That's getting those caliper pistons to press up against the pads so they're tight where they're supposed to be. So press that brake pedal in and out till your brakes are stiff and tight. Bleed your brakes. Put your tires back on. Check your brake fluid reservoir. Pump the pedal a couple more times for safety. And there you go. That should about do it. Thanks for watching.